The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and sleepless nights, the kind of place where time stretched and emotions lived close to the surface. Nurses moved quickly past white walls, their soft shoes whispering against the floor, while new fathers paced with phones in their hands and tired smiles on their faces. Inside one of the rooms, a young woman lay exhausted but awake, her newborn sleeping beside her. She had imagined this moment so many times, yet nothing had prepared her for how fragile and exposed she would feel now. The door opened sharply, breaking the quiet. Her mother-in-law stepped inside without knocking, her face tight with disapproval rather than joy. She didn't look at the baby at first. Instead, her eyes fixed on the young mother as if searching for something to criticize. The air in the room seemed to change immediately, becoming heavier, harder to breathe. "I don't know why you're still here," the older woman said coldly. "You've done what you came to do. It's time for you to leave." The words hit harder than any physical blow. The young mother blinked, certain she must have misunderstood. Leave. She had given birth barely hours ago. Her body ached, her heart was full and terrified all at once, and now she was being told she didn't belong. "This is a hospital," she said quietly. "I'm supposed to be here." Her mother-in-law scoffed. "Don't play innocent with me. You think having a child means you own everything now. You're not fooling anyone. My son will see the truth soon enough." The young woman felt tears burn behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had been the wrong one from the start, too quiet, too independent, not from the right family. This moment, which should have been sacred, was being poisoned by old resentment. "You're rushing to the wrong station," the older woman continued, her voice rising. "This isn't where your journey ends. Don't get too comfortable." Just as the tension reached a breaking point, the door opened again. This time, the mood shifted instantly. A man stepped inside, calm and confident, his presence commanding attention without a single raised voice. He was unexpected, not just because of who he was, but because no one had told the mother-in-law he was coming. She turned, ready to protest, and then froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The man greeted the young mother first, smiling warmly, asking how she was feeling, how the baby was doing. His kindness felt like sunlight after a storm. Only then did he look at the older woman, his expression polite but firm. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said evenly. "This mother and her child are exactly where they're supposed to be." The mother-in-law's confidence collapsed in an instant. She shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that her authority meant very little in this room. She muttered something under her breath, but the fight had gone out of her. Within moments, she excused herself and left, her sharp heels echoing weakly down the hall. When the door closed, the young mother finally allowed herself to breathe. For the first time since giving birth, she felt protected. Elsewhere, far from the hospital walls, another confrontation was unfolding under bright studio lights. On a daytime talk show watched by millions, a heated argument had taken center stage. Voices overlapped, tension crackled, and the audience sensed something unusual was happening. Bill Maher leaned forward in his chair, his expression serious, no trace of his usual smirk. Across from him, Sunny Hostin spoke passionately, her words sharp, driven by conviction. The discussion had veered off its expected path, becoming personal, intense, and impossible to ignore. For a moment, it seemed like just another loud exchange destined to be clipped and shared online. But then Maher spoke again, cutting cleanly through the noise. "Hold on," he said, his voice steady but unmistakably firm. "This isn't about slogans or sound bites. You can't shut down a conversation just because it makes you uncomfortable." The room went quiet. Hostin tried to respond, but Maher continued, not raising his voice, not attacking, just refusing to yield. "That's the problem," he added. "We talk over each other instead of listening. You don't win an argument by silencing the other side." The audience shifted in their seats. Some nodded, others crossed their arms, but everyone was listening now. Hostin paused, clearly taken aback. The dynamic had changed. This wasn't a shouting match anymore, it was a moment of control, of drawing a line. Just like in that hospital room, power had quietly shifted without force or drama. One voice, calm and unyielding, had changed the direction of everything. Back at the hospital, evening light filtered through the window as the young mother cradled her baby. The shock of the confrontation still lingered, but it no longer defined the moment. What stayed with her instead was the realization that she was not as alone as she had feared. Sometimes help arrived in unexpected forms, at the exact moment it was needed. The mother-in-law did not return that day. When she did come back later, her tone was different, measured, cautious. The sharp edges had been dulled by the memory of being confronted, of being seen. And on television screens across the country, viewers replayed the moment when a heated argument was brought to a halt not by volume, but by resolve. Some praised it, others criticized it, but no one could deny its impact. In both places, the lesson was the same. Authority rooted in intimidation was fragile. True strength didn't shout, it stood its ground. And whether in a maternity ward or a television studio, the right presence at the right time could leave even the loudest voice suddenly, unmistakably silent. The maternity ward was unusually quiet for that hour of the afternoon, wrapped in the soft hum of machines and distant footsteps. Sunlight filtered through half-drawn curtains, resting gently on the pale walls and the small crib beside the bed. A newborn slept there, breathing in short, perfect rhythms. The young mother watched her child with a mixture of wonder and exhaustion, her body still heavy from labor, her mind floating between joy and fear. She believed the hardest part was over. She was wrong. The door opened without warning. Her mother-in-law entered as if she owned the room, her posture rigid, her eyes sharp. She didn't smile, didn't whisper congratulations, didn't lean toward the baby with curiosity or tenderness. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked directly at the woman in the bed, as though the newborn was barely relevant. "So," she said, her tone dry, "you're still here." The young mother frowned slightly. "Of course I am. I just gave birth." The older woman clicked her tongue. "Hospitals aren't hotels. You've already done what you needed to do. My son will handle everything from here." The words sank in slowly, each one colder than the last. The young mother felt her chest tighten. She had imagined conflict in the future, arguments about parenting, disagreements about boundaries, but not this. "Not here. Not now. I need to recover," she replied, trying to keep her voice calm. "And the baby needs me." Her mother-in-law's lips curled into a thin smile. "Don't flatter yourself. Children survive without all this drama. You always thought you were more important than you are." Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. The baby stirred softly, and the young mother instinctively reached out, placing a protective hand on the crib. She felt small, vulnerable, as if the walls themselves were closing in. "You're rushing to the wrong station," the older woman continued, stepping closer. "This isn't your destination. Don't pretend otherwise." Before the young mother could respond, the door opened again. This time, the sound was different, measured, deliberate. A man entered, well-dressed, calm, and entirely unexpected. His eyes took in the scene in seconds, the pale face of the woman in the bed, the rigid stance of the older woman, the tension hanging in the air. He nodded to the nurse in the hallway and stepped fully inside, closing the door behind him. "Is there a problem here?" he asked quietly. The mother-in-law turned, ready to assert herself, but the moment she recognized him, her confidence drained away. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened, then closed. No sharp remark followed, no command. She was suddenly, unmistakably silent. The man didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse or insult. He simply spoke with certainty. "This patient and her child will remain here as long as medically necessary. Any harassment will be addressed immediately." The older woman shifted back, her authority evaporating. She murmured something about misunderstanding and quickly left the room, her footsteps retreating down the hall. When the door closed, the young mother felt her knees weaken with relief. She hadn't realized how much strength it took just to sit there and endure. The man smiled gently at her, asked if she was comfortable, and reminded her that she had every right to be there. Then he left as quietly as he had arrived. Miles away, in a brightly lit television studio, another kind of confrontation was reaching its peak. The audience sat forward in their seats as voices clashed on The View. What began as a discussion had turned sharp, the air thick with tension. Sunny Hostin spoke forcefully, her words layered with emotion and urgency. Bill Maher listened, his expression serious, his posture still. The exchange grew louder, more heated, each side pushing harder. It felt like a familiar pattern, talking over one another, competing for the final word. But then Maher leaned forward, lifting his hand slightly. "No," he said, cutting through the noise. His voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. That's not how this works. The room went quiet. The audience froze, sensing the shift. Maher continued, unshaken. You don't get to shut someone down just because you don't like what they're saying. That's not dialogue. That's control. Hostin blinked, momentarily caught off guard. She began to respond, but the momentum had changed. Maher didn't attack, he held his ground, refusing to be pushed into silence. The power dynamic flipped in real time. Viewers at home felt it too. This wasn't about winning points. It was about drawing a boundary, about refusing to be intimidated by volume or certainty alone. Back in the hospital, evening settled in. The young mother held her baby close, the events of the day replaying in her mind. The words that had hurt her most now felt distant, weakened by what followed. She realized that intimidation only worked when no one challenged it. Once confronted, it collapsed. Her mother-in-law did not return that night. When she finally did, days later, she spoke more carefully, her eyes avoiding direct conflict. The balance had shifted permanently. On television and in that hospital room, the situations were different, but the truth was the same. Whether wrapped in family authority or public opinion, power built on pressure was fragile. It took only one calm, unyielding presence to expose it. And in those moments, one private, one public, silence fell not on the weak, but on those who believed they could never be challenged.